The town of Zwickau is situated in Saxony, in the heart of Germany. One of its most respected citizens was the publisher August Schumann, who passed on his love of literature to his youngest son, Robert. The boy spent happy hours browsing among the books in his father's shop. Often he left off reading and sat quietly, lost in daydreams. Robert was popular with his schoolmates. He held them spellbound with the wonderful tales he invented. He wrote poetry and made up melodies at the piano. His father was extremely proud of Robert's talent and encouraged him in his desire to become a musician. Robert was 16 when his father died. The boy was overwhelmed with grief. He felt that he had lost the best friend he could ever have. Now his future lay in the hands of his mother, who was firmly opposed to music as a profession. Robert, she said, would never be able to make a living as a musician. She insisted that he study law. To please his mother, Robert entered the law school of the University of Leipzig, but he was most unhappy there. The following year he changed to Heidelberg. He fell in love with the old university town and thoroughly enjoyed the carefree student life. But he hardly ever attended the lectures on law. Instead, he read a great deal, followed the courses in philosophy and art, and spent hours playing the piano. He now had only one ambition: to devote his life to music. In his letters to his mother, Robert explained that he would never be happy until she allowed him to become a musician. At first she refused. In time, however, she realized that he was not meant to be a lawyer, and reluctantly gave her consent. Robert left Heidelberg and went to Leipzig, the musical center of Germany. He was determined to become a concert pianist and began to study with the foremost teacher in Leipzig, Friedrich Wieck. His heart was full of hope. "I am so fresh in soul and spirit," he exulted, "that life gushes and bubbles around me like 1,000 fountains." Robert lived in the same house as his teacher. He was soon a favorite with Friedrich Wieck's children, who never tired of listening to his fantastic tales. Especially he charmed little Clara, Wieck's 8-year-old daughter, who already was showing great talent as a pianist. She looked up to Robert as to a fascinating older brother. She would listen for hours while he sat at the piano creating his own melodies. Robert deeply regretted that he had not begun his musical career earlier. Eager to make up for lost time, he worked very hard at the piano. In order to improve his technique quickly, he used a gadget that held his fourth finger fastened back while the others exercised. In this way, he hoped to strengthen the fourth finger, which is normally the weakest. This device was so effective that Robert permanently injured the muscles of his right hand. he had to give up his hope of becoming a concert pianist. For a time, Robert felt very sad. Yet the accident was a blessing in disguise, since it turned all his energy into composing. Music welled up in him. In a fever of inspiration, the young man wrote the works that established his fame as one of the great piano composers. "Everything comes to me of itself," he declared. "Indeed, it sometimes seems to me that I could play on forever and never come to an end." At the same time, Robert was engaged in an exciting literary venture. Together with a group of young friends, he founded the New Magazine for Music, which became, under his direction, one of the most important music journals in Europe. His goal, as he wrote, was to help prepare and hasten the coming of a new poetic era. He attacked the music that was cheap and tawdry, and directed the attention of the public to all that was noble and great. In his articles, Robert revealed himself as an imaginative writer. He used two pen names that represented the two sides of his personality. Florestan was gay, ardent, energetic. Eusebius was tender, pensive, full of longing. In one of his finest piano works, Carnaval, he left a charming musical portrait of these two personalities. Here is Florestan. And now, Eusebius. Robert's piano music is marked by tremendous rhythmic energy and animation. By this time, Clara had grown into a lovely young woman. She had adored Robert ever since her childhood. Robert now realized that he loved her in return. the lovers encountered an unexpected obstacle in Clara's father. Friedrich Wieck had no basis for objecting to Robert as a son-in-law. Indeed, he had great admiration for his former pupil's talent. But he had taught his daughter for years, and had developed her into one of the foremost pianists of her time. He was unable to surrender her to anyone else. He tried by every means in his power to destroy her love for Robert. Clara was cruelly torn between the father she revered and the man she adored. Robert and Clara went through a period of terrible anguish. But despite all the obstacles that Wieck put in their way, they remained true to one another. In the end, love triumphed. Robert and Clara were married. Schumann and Clara settled in Leipzig, pursuing their careers side by side. At that time, Clara was considerably more famous than Schumann, since a concert artist is apt to be more on the public eye than a composer. But she helped to spread his fame by playing his music. She introduced his magnificent Concerto for piano and orchestra to audiences all over Europe. Robert revealed himself in his compositions as a true lyric poet, now ardent, now dreamy, now vigorous and gay. His passionate music belonged to the new Romanticism, which regarded music as a means of expressing intense personal emotion. Many composers of his time used the concerto form as a means of showing off the technique of the soloist, but Schumann had higher aims. His goal throughout was poetic expression. Of special importance is the cadenza, which is a flowery solo passage introduced into an orchestral work in order to display the virtuosity of the player and the resources of the instrument. At one time, the cadenza was made up on the spur of the moment at the concert, a fanciful improvisation on the themes of the movement. Later on, composers began to write out the cadenza beforehand, since they could not depend on the performer to make up an adequate one of his own. The cadenza of Schumann's concerto is one of the highlights of the work. In the coda, or final section, the original melody is transformed into a march-like theme. In his Spring Symphony, Schumann created a song of joy in honor of the season of awakening. To a friend who was going to conduct the work, he wrote, "Could you breathe into your orchestra a yearning for spring? That is what I felt when I wrote it. Right at the first entrance of the horns and trumpets, I would like to have it sound as if from on high, like a call to awake." The introduction leads into an allegro molto vivace, very fast and lively. The jubilant first theme is presented by the full orchestra. The second theme, in contrast, is quiet and peaceful. In the development section, the first theme is expanded into new and fanciful patterns. recapitulation or restatement, in which the themes appear more or less in their original form. The movement ends with a long and exciting coda, or closing section. Schumann loved children. Ever since his student days in Leipzig, when he used to make up stories for little Clara and her sister, he had a rare understanding of the feelings of a child. He was the first great composer to translate this understanding into music. His scenes from childhood form a series of delightful sketches, memories, impressions. The most famous number in the collection is Träumerei, which may be translated as reverie or dreaming. The famous melody evokes the happy hours that he himself spent in daydreams. Years later, he returned to the world of childhood when he wrote the Album for the Young, a series of easy pieces for his own children. This collection includes The Happy Farmer Returning from Work, which is loved by children all over the world. Despite his happiness with Clara and their children, Schumann grew increasingly moody as the years passed. Clara thought that a change of scene would do him good. Accordingly, the two artists moved from Leipzig to Dresden, where they spent 5 years. Schumann then accepted the post of musical director in the city of Düsseldorf on the Rhine. Schumann's principal duty was to conduct the choral and orchestral concerts in Düsseldorf. But he was too absent-minded to make a good conductor, nor was he able to cope with the practical details of organizing concerts. He soon resigned his post and was free to devote himself entirely to composing. Schumann was now at the height of his career. His fame was spreading. His music was played in many lands. Yet, despite his success, he withdrew more and more from the world. Neither Clara's love nor the devotion of his children could save him from the fits of depression that attacked him ever more frequently. He himself had a premonition that he did not have much time left. In these last years, I have been very industrious, he wrote to a friend. One must work as long as the day lasts. His premonition came true. He was cut down in his prime by a severe mental breakdown. His last letter was like a farewell to his art. The music is silent now, he wrote. I will close. Already it grows dark. In vain, Clara tried to nurse him back to health. He died shortly after. But his works live on, as fresh and vibrant as when they were written. Robert Schumann was one of the most eloquent voices of the new romantic spirit. His music fully achieved what he considered to be the artist's mission, to send light into the depths of the human heart.